And meantime, along the processional way at the Mall, Her Majesty the Queen is greeted by a royal salute in the forecourt of Buckingham Palace. The Queen in the uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Scots Guards, wearing the ribbon and star of the Order of the Thistle. Riding Burmese once again, 24 years of age now, presented to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The Queen, who has attended nearly 40 of these parades, appearing first of all as Princess Elizabeth, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards in 1947, the first birthday parade after the war. With her, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, both colonels of Guards regiments. The Duke of Luxembourg is Colonel of the Irish Guards, and the Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, Senior Field Marshal in the British Army. He rides Solomon, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, riding St. David. Bay gelding, age 17. The equerries riding closely on either side of Her Majesty the Queen. And so the Queen's procession moves into the Mall, while at the other end of the Mall and into the approach road comes the Queen Mother's procession. At the Guards Memorial, the little carriage will turn left, move between the ranks of number 3 Guard, and she will be greeted by a royal salute. As the outriders and the coachmen and footmen will raise their hats to salute the colour of the 1st Battalion, Scots Guards. Queen Mother and the Princess of Wales will watch the parade from the central window, where once Queen Victoria watched incog with her little son Bertie, the future Edward VII, who loved it all. There'll be many royal children and members of the royal family waiting to greet the Queen Mother up. The masked mounted band arrives in the approach road to Horse Guards. Brigade Major Lieutenant Colonel Edward Armitstead, second birthday parade for which he's been responsible, commissioned into the Coldstream Guards in 1967, ensign at the Queen's birthday parade in 1968 when the 2nd Battalion trooped the colour, riding Royal Oak, and he is followed by 4 troopers of the Blues and Royals. Massed mounted bands of the Household Cavalry playing the Grand March by Handel, arranged by the Director of Music, Major Brian Keeley. Joined the army 40 years ago, riding on his last birthday parade. The youngest musician on parade is 17 and passed out from Knightsbridge with a full license to ride a horse and play a clarinet at the same time just 2 weeks ago. two magnificent drum horses. Caractacus, the lifeguard's drum horse, and Belisarius, the drum horse of the Blues and Royals. The first two divisions of the Sovereign's escort, found by the Blues and Royals. Coming in under the Commonwealth flags. Tonga, Tanzania, Swaziland, Sri Lanka, Solomon Islands, Singapore, Sierra Leone, the Seychelles. Her Majesty the Queen, on Burmese, moves into the approach road. Well protected by her equerries, the master of the horse. Behind her, the four royal princes. They all wear the garter, ribbon and stars. And a wonderful sight as the Queen's procession arrives at Horseguard. The royal princes are all colonels of Guards regiments. The Prince of Wales is Colonel of the Welsh Guards, has been since David's Day, 1975. Duke of Kent, Colonel of the Scots Guards, his regiment that is trooping the colour today. As the Queen now turns behind number 7 and 6, 7 and 8 Guards in front of the Admiralty. A small figure on this huge parade ground. Wearing her usual 6 medals, the Imperial Order of the Crown of India, Defence Medal, the War Medal, 39-45, her grandfather's Silver Jubilee Medal, father's Coronation Medal, 1937, and the Canadian Forces Decoration, and the star in her hat given her by the 3rd Guards Club, a club of officers of the Scots Guards. For the first birthday parade on which he rode as Sovereign and Colonel-in-Chief of the Household, all the regiments of the Household Division, which was 1952. The members of her family watch from the window above, from the Duke of Wellington's old office when he was Commander-in-Chief. The old clock tower chimes out 11 o'clock. And there you see the Duke of Kent on the grey Blaze. It's a grey mare. It's a police horse. Prince of Wales riding Centennial. Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Colonel of the Irish Guards, joined the regiment in 1942 and served in the ranks for 8 months before he was commissioned in 1943. A salute to her mother above. Princess Anne there too. She's there with her children. The Kents are there, the Gloucesters. And now Her Majesty the Queen will be greeted by a royal salute. as the parade shoulders arms, you could see from the variation in salutes in the stands that there are many officers of the armies and navies of other countries present here watching this spectacular military parade on horse guards. Now, Her Majesty the Queen, preceded by the Brigade Major, Lieutenant Colonel Edward Armistead, coaching guards, 4 troopers of the Blues and Royals, rides on to the parade to begin the inspection of the line and of the Sovereign's escort. The mass bands play Loch Lomond, arranged by Lieutenant Colonel Duncan Beat, a former Director of Music, Scots Guards, and that'll make the ensign today homesick. He is a young officer who comes from Driven, near Loch Lomond. And the first of the 5 parts of the parade begins. After the inspection comes the troop, a musical display by the massed bands. And this is followed, after the collection of the colour by the escort, by trooping the colour through the ranks. The march past by the foot guards in slow and quick time. And finally, the rank passed by the household cavalry at the walk and at the trot, included in the main parade since the first year of the Queen's reign. Remember, quite a high proportion of these guardsmen now about to see their sovereign face to face are on the Queen's Birthday Parade for the first time. And this moment is the culmination of 6 weeks' intensive preparation, from drill on the barrack square to guard mountings on horse guards and the 2 full-scale rehearsals here on the previous 2 Saturdays, all under the gaze of former members of these famous regiments, from former major generals to national service conscripts. To stand at attention is the first drill position a young guardsman is taught. Learning to stand still without movement or fidgeting is a discipline of field training as well as of the parade ground. The purpose of a parade like this is, of course, to honor the monarch, but also to develop concentration, quick thinking, attention to detail, all of which saves soldiers' lives on a field of battle. An unnecessary movement in battle draws the eye of an enemy. In parade, it draws the eye of that master of the art of drill, the Garrison Sergeant Major Black Alec Dewman, whose comments fly like guided missiles to targets even of superior rank. Her Majesty will now turn the corner of number 8 guard, past the adjutant of the parade, Major Neil Crichton Stewart on Santana. Brigade Major, 4 troopers of the Blues and Royals, lead the procession. The Queen is followed by the 4 Royal Colonels, the Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel Grenadier Guards, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Colonel Irish Guards, Prince of Wales, the Duke of Kent on the grey, Master of the Horse and Gold Stick in waiting, it's Desmond Fitzpatrick, Colonel of the Blues and Royals. The Crown Equerry, for 25 years, Lieutenant Colonel Sir John Miller, Welsh Guards, and the Equerries in waiting, Lieutenant Colonel Sir John Johnson and Lieutenant Colonel George West. They are followed by the non-royal colonels, Colonel of the Life Guards, Major General Lord Michael FitzAlan Howard, and the Colonel of the Coaching Guards, Major General Sir George Burns. The Major General, cocked hat, commanding the Household Division, Major General Christopher Airy, CBE. Silver Stick in waiting, Colonel James Empson, made a CBE in today's birthday honours. The Chief of Staff, the Staff Captain, Lieutenant Colonels commanding the regiments of Foot Guards. The quick march is the pride of Princes Street by another former Director of Music, Scots Guards, Jimmy Howe. As Her Majesty now inspects the Sovereign's escort drawn up on the St. James's Park side of the square. The Queen and the Royal Princes salute the sovereign standard of the Blues and Royals. Nearest to us is the Major of the parade, Major Brian O'Gorman on Gary Owen, grey gelding. Burmese, whom the Queen has ridden since 1969. And if you think of all the three rehearsals every year, he must have done this parade sort of more than 50 times. So he knows his way back to the saluting base. It's quite... Oh, and there we have Lord Frederick Windsor, and Peter Phillips and Zara Phillips are there as well, and the three Gloucester children. And sunshine is lovely for us looking at the parade, but it is a bit difficult for the horses because every reflection is caught in the shining armour. The badges, the drums, all reflect light from odd angles. But a fine old horse, Burmese. So the Queen with the Royal Princes and her attendant officers have returned to the saluting base. And when they've all reached the saluting base, the guards will be brought to attention, and the massed bands will then troop in slow and quick time. Prince Andrew and Miss Sarah Ferguson are up there too, watching the parade. Captain Mark Phillips, Princess Anne, their two children, the Duchess of Kent and Lord Nicholas Windsor, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, their children. Princess Alice is with them. Princess Alexandra, and Angus Ogilvy, whose moment of history as ensign was rained off in 1948 when he was serving with the Scots Guards. Prince and Princess Michael of Kent and their children. And they watch from the Duke of Wellington's office. The Queen Mother, just over a week ago, realized a long-held ambition to visit the battlefield of Waterloo and Wellington's battle headquarters. A field of battle where many of the Household Division regiments distinguished themselves, not least among these the Scots Guards. Drum Major Dean gives the command, and the slow march is, of course, the Huguenots by mile here. the quick march is Scottish Emblem. Lance Sergeant Thomas Todd hails from Glasgow. He's 27, sergeant in charge of drum corps, pipes and drums, in the 1st Battalion. He played with the pipes and drums when they won the Grade 2 World Championship of the Scottish Pipe Band Association in 1984. Now the pipes and drums of both battalions are Grade 1. He's about to take up a position to the right of the escort, and when eventually the bands stop playing, he will beat a drummer's call, the traditional signal for the officers to take post and the collection of the colour to commence. Lance Sergeant Todd returns to his place in the mass band. Now the field officer will give the command for the escort to shoulder arms. The rest of the parade will stand at ease. The subaltern, now by tradition, takes command of the escort to collect the colour from in front of number 7 guard. The captain of the escort, Major Spicer, who served with the 2nd Battalion in the Falkland Islands, he has moved to the right of number 2 guard, and Captain Robert Armstrong has given the command for the dressing. Captain Armstrong gives the command. The escort for the colour, as it is called at this time, moves on. The tune is the British Grenadiers, used by all right flank or grenadier companies of British infantry regiments. Now, when the escort have changed direction with the left form, they will mark time until the left guide for the escort, Fellow Sergeant Anthony McNally, signals to Captain Armstrong that the mass bands have cleared the line of march. Sergeant McNally has signaled the mass bands are clear. Now, Captain Armstrong crosses the central roadway, and he's already looking for the small white marker stone 15 paces from the colour party, where he will halt the escort. Behind him is the ensign, Second Lieutenant James Pryor, with the white colour belt. The escort dresses once again in open order. Mass bands have turned about. The rest of the parade will be called to attention to witness the handing over of the colour. Regimental Sergeant Major Graham Fowler is in his 21st year with the regiment. This is the one occasion on which a warrant officer uses a drawn sword. His two children watch from the stands as he picks up Second Lieutenant James Pryor with the white colour belt, the ensign. He's 21, soon goes to Northern Ireland with the battalion for a 4-month tour of duty. Regimental Sergeant Major Fowler salutes the colour. Receives it from the sergeant of the colour party. Sergeant McLaughlin from Kilmarnock. The ensign salutes the colour. When he has sheathed his sword, he will receive the colour from the Sergeant Major. Second Lieutenant Pryor's father served with the same battalion of the same regiment and is watching today from the stands. Proud moment. So the escort has now become the escort to the colour. It has greeted the arrival of the Queen's colour, and Second Lieutenant Pryor, the regimental sergeant major, whose father also served with the regiment, the colour party, now take their places in the escort. Sergeant McLaughlin and Regimental Sergeant Major Fowler halting together at the rear of the escort.
Escort to the colour! Five to the centre!
Captain Armstrong now, by means of a left form, will bring the escort into a position to begin trooping the colour through the ranks. Meanwhile, the 360 musicians in the mass bands perform their remarkable spin wheel. The slow march is escort to the colour. The bands pivot on the centre. In the outer ranks, there's a bit of a marathon at high speed. In the middle, quite a lot of lingering with intent. It's a drill movement passed on from one generation of Guards Division musicians to another. Almost everybody in there is doing something different, concentrating on their own bit of the puzzle. And yet, because of the hours of rehearsal on the barrack square, it looks so smooth and purposeful. And few will spot the secret signal that turns one half of the mass bands about to face the same way as the other half. Music cuts out so that the other 7 guards can present arms before the Queen's colour of the 1st Battalion Scots Guards is trooped to the traditional Grenadiers' slow march. The colour is wreathed with laurel, for today is the anniversary of a battle for which a new honour has been added to this Queen's colour. Falkland Islands, 1982. On the night of the 13th, 14th June, 1982, in East Falkland Island, the 2nd Battalion Scots Guards was engaged in an assault on the ridge of Tumbledown Mountain. It was a fierce encounter, but it marked the end of the South Atlantic conflict. Port Stanley was entered on the 14th, and the Union flag flew again above the islands. 8 Scots Guards were killed, 41 were wounded. Not in a battle long ago, many on parade knew these men and remember them today. One was a drill sergeant. This simple yet solemn and moving ceremony of trooping the colour through the ranks has its origin long before there was any such thing as a British Army. Leaders from time immemorial have sought to make their followers familiar with their banners, emblems, devices, to which they could rally in times of crisis on the battlefield. Eventually, each regiment, then each company in the British Army, had a distinguishing flag. Since 1700, it's been the custom of each battalion to have its own colours. In a strange town, in a strange land, the colours were lodged each night in the billet, which became the unit's headquarters. The colour was hung from a doorway or from a window to mark that location. Early in the morning, the colour was escorted with honour to its place among the assembled troops. And so it is that colours have come to be revered as the consecrated symbols of a regiment's ongoing life and traditions. The escort carefully keeping closed up, covered off, so that they can resume their position to the right of the line. Advance and present arms without having to do a dressing after they halt.
Escort to the colour! Well and fast! No! Go! Escort to the colour! Reason! Up!
Field Officer, Colonel Johnny Clavering, gives the order to the officers to take post, quick march. Command of the escort is returned to the captain, Major Spicer. Colour retires behind the escort. Now numbers 1 to 5 guards will about turn. Now they are forming back into columns of guards for the march past. One to 5 guards about turn. Number 6, 7, and 8 guards will move to the right in threes and form threes. They have to do a different movement from the other guards. If they formed back into column of guards, they would lose a column distance on the march past. Field officer gives the command, and the march past, first of all in slow time, begins. The tune is Golden Spurs. from a march by Sam Rhodes, a former director of music, Scots Guards. The music changes to the slow march of the Scots Guards. The Garb of Old Gaul by General John Reed, a Scottish soldier of fortune. As the colour which was first trooped in the Queen's Silver Jubilee year is now trooped for the last time on this parade. New colours will be granted by Her Majesty next year. The Royal Line of Scotland, beneath the Imperial State Crown. Battle honour, Sphinx enwreathed, superscribed by the legend Egypt, and the new battle honour, Falkland Islands 1982, which we're seeing for the first time. Battle honours on the colour, 52 awarded to the regiment not on the colour. Numbers 3 and 4 Guards, bound by the 2nd Battalion Scots Guards. Numbers 5 and 6 Guards, bound by the 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards. This is the regimental slow march of the Coldstream Guards. March from Figaro by Mozart. Number 7 and 8 Guards are found by the 1st Battalion Irish Guards. This is regimental slow march of the Irish Guards. Let Erin remember. The rear of the parade, the adjutant of the parade, Major Neil Crichton Stewart, Scots Guards, on Santana. Colonel Johnny Clavering, OBE, MC, Scots Guards, Field Officer and Gate Waiting, salutes Her Majesty and returns to the centre of the parade ground to give the order for the march past in quick time. This tune is Her Bright Smile Haunts Me Still. Princess Margaret watches from above in strawberry pink and taking her own snapshots of this great occasion. And the quick march is Holyrood. Much of the Scots Guards recruiting is done in Scotland. Indeed, some 70% of those serving the Scots Guards have Scottish connections or are natives to Scotland. This march called after the Queen's residence in her northern capital, Holyrood Palace, the Palace of Holyrood House. Now a tradition begun by Her Majesty the Queen on the occasion of her first appearing in this parade as Colonel-in-Chief of the Scots Guards. She suggested that the pipes should move to the front of the mass bands to play the regimental quick march of the Scots Guards, Heel and Laddie. Interesting to think that the Scots Guards once had a Highland company who wore kilts. That was before Oliver Cromwell got hold of them. Now the regimental quick march of the Coldstream Guards, Villanolo, by the 19th century German composer Johann Valentin Hahn. The last two guards, number 7 and 8 guards, found by the 1st Battalion Irish Guards, march past to St. Patrick's Day, a traditional Irish air. Conclusion of the march past, Field Officer and Brigade Waiting salutes Her Majesty the Queen. And we'll turn about to take command of the parade again. As the mass bands play Army of the Nile, the Sphinx was won for the colours of the Scots Guards in 1800, the regiment fighting Napoleon's armies in Egypt. 82 years later, they fought again in Egypt. 2 Scots Guard companies were part of General Gordon's Camel Regiment. And both battalions served with distinction 60 years later in the deserts of North Africa against Rome. Miss Sarah Ferguson with Princess Margaret there, watching her first birthday parade from the Major General's window. Guards have halted. The officers now take post. Colour comes to the front of the parade. And now the guards will dress. So, as the guard dress, light left and right dress in open order, so the mass bands leave the centre of the parade to the tune, the pipe tune Stowe Park, composed by Piper Smart, who is on parade. Stowe Park, a tune named for the house in Gloucestershire of Lord Vestey, a generous benefactor of the Scots Guards. Scots Guards pipers in dark blue doublets, feather bonnets. Pipers of the Irish Guards with their gobines, green doublets, saffron kilts, Tara brooches. And as one set of musicians leave the centre of the parade, so the massed mounted bands come on to parade to play for the rank past at the walk and the trot of the household cavalry. Grand March from Aida by Verdi. The regimental walk march is the Blues and Royals Slow March, said to have been composed by Queen Victoria's mother, the Duchess of Kent. As the sovereign standard of the Blues and Royals is lowered to Her Majesty, it too bears the battle honour, Falkland Islands, 1982. Blues and Royals served with distinction in the South Atlantic. The Coverer Guards Guards, the sovereign standard. On the grey, the trumpeter. The 3rd and 4th divisions of the sovereign's escort walk past to the Life Guards' slow march. Also said to have been composed by that prolific composer, Queen Victoria's mother. And at the rear, as always, the 2 farriers with their gleaming pole axes. The farrier of the Life Guards with the black crew. Both wear blue tunics. Lord Wolseley's horse looks on. Royal Standard flies from the Horse Guards building. This is the Royals' slow march. Trumpeter Lance Corporal Sullivan gives the call for the trot. He was the trumpeter in front of the Queen's Life Guard when it was attacked in Hyde Park in 1982. A brave young man. And the neutral trot is the Duke of Wellington. He was, of course, colonel of the Blues and Royals. He was also in the Grenadiers. And in fact, when for Queen Victoria, he once took the salute at the birthday parade. As an old man, he appeared in the uniform of the Grenadier Guards on this very parade ground. White cross belts with the red flash cords, gilded helmets, red plumes, the Blues and Royals, the white plumes of the Life Guards. The officers cut with their swords to show the change of direction. Magnificent horses are aged between 6 and 16 years, broken and trained by the household cavalry. And the regimental trot is the keel row. Hours of grooming yesterday. Reveille at 6 o'clock this morning. The Guards order arms. And the household cavalry trot round past the Admiralty building, raising clouds of dust from the newly gravelled parade ground. More sand has been put in the roadway too, I see, in the approach road, to eliminate the glare of the sun. The Director of Music, Major Keeling, salutes Her Majesty. The drum horses move off. Caractacus, Belisarius. The magnificent drums presented to the Lifeguards by William IV and to the Blues and Royals by George III, made of solid silver. Great weight they are too. Musician Timothy Francis, the Blues and Royals. Kettle drum of the Lifeguards is musician Robert Newnham. His second parade as kettle drummer. And musician Timothy Francis of the Blues and Royals gets married 3 days after that other wedding in July. The drum horses wearing throat plumes, or beards as they are familiarly called. They used to be worn in battle by officers' chargers to present a saber cut to the throat of the animal. Now with the Royal Salute, all 7 regiments of the Household Division wish their Colonel-in-Chief many happy returns. The crowds in the stands now sit down. The last Royal Salute of the parade is over. It was a guardsman who said, "You see, we're her troops, and it's her day." And that just about sums up this parade. The heads rivel to the front. The dressing is complete.
Well formed! 3 ranks! Form! 3 ranks!
Field officer, brigade waiting, gives the
At the hall! Right the fingers! Right! Form!
orders to the guards to move into 3 ranks. Mass-mounted bands leave the parade ground. Under the Commonwealth flags, they disappear into the Mall. Meantime, the guards, who had about turned, now form into divisions for the march off. Before 1972, each guard formed into 3 divisions, making for a very long column, so that the rear of the parade had a great deal of difficulty hearing the bands when the bands turned into the Mall, and the last divisions were still at the other side of Horse Guards. But this now makes for a very exciting end to the Queen's Birthday Parade. And guards, numbers 3 to 8, close up on the escort to form a phalanx of scarlet. And it is in this formation that the foot guards will march behind the Queen back to Buckingham Palace. Meantime, the fifes and drums play Prussian Glory. It was in 1961 that the fifes were retuned so that they could perform with the mass bands. And this is the only time that the corps of drums are heard alone on this parade. And the Household Cavalry move up the approach road under the Commonwealth flags. When they were flown for the first time in 1965, the Major General John Nelson sent for the brigade major, a future Major General, and complained that they were far too low. The Queen's horse might shy at them. Whose stupid idea was it to have them anyway, he demanded. Yours, sir, came the reply. And as the Household Cavalry moves towards the Mall, so the Queen Mother's procession, 2 barouches from the Royal Mews, moves along the Mall. The coachman and footman in semi-estate livery, Queen's coachman Arthur Schull, driving the barouche with her Royal Highness Princess of Wales. And she's typically brought with her her treasurer and equerry, who was a serving officer in the Scots Guards, Major General Sir Ralph Anstruther. Field officer and brigade waiting, Colonel Johnny Clavering, OBE MC, rides up to Her Majesty on Bugle Boy. His horse and the Queen's horse are both 24 years of age. They've been eye to eye a few times. Field officer asks permission for the guards to march off. That permission is granted, and he rides back to command the parade. The escort will provide the Queen's Guard back at Buckingham Palace. The first 10 sentries to be posted at Buckingham Palace and St. James's will not be relieved until 2 p.m., so they will have been on parade since 9:30 this morning. The 1st Battalion Scots Guards are stationed at Purbright. In 1988 they go to Germany. 2nd Battalion Scots Guards came back from Cyprus just 4 months ago from peacekeeping duties there and are at Hounslow. 2nd Battalion Coldstream Guards are in Wellington Barracks. The 1st Battalion Coldstream Guards are in Hong Kong. 1st Battalion Irish Guards are back from Munster in Germany and stationed at Chelsea. Duties by the left. Quick march. The 1st Battalion Welsh Guards present in Germany as part of our NATO commitment. Grenadiers. And this is another arrangement by Jimmy Howe, the Glaswegian. Her Majesty the Queen, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh. Majesty salutes as she leaves the parade ground, moves into the approach road. And now led by the pipes and drums, playing Leaving Port Ascay, Her Majesty rides back to Buckingham Palace at the head of her foot guard. Integrity, sticking to things you believe in, cherishing the inheritance passed on by other generations. The ideal of service to sovereign and country, courage in times of danger. These are the qualities most valued by the Household Division and formalized in the glittering spectacle of the birthday parade. The colour sergeants and sergeants who have been the pointsmen leave the parade ground, having stood more or less motionless for over 2 hours. In the cocked hat, the new Major General commanding the Household Division, Major General Christopher Airy, CBE, who once commanded the 1st Battalion Scots Guards. And the Queen's family awaiting her. As closely surrounded by her equerries and grooms from the Royal Mews, Her Majesty rides round the Queen Victoria Memorial, back to take yet another salute at the front gate of Buckingham Palace. Queen Mother, Princess Margaret, Princess Alice of Gloucester, Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, Peter Phillips, Lady Gabriella Windsor, the Queen turns in the central gateway and, accompanied by His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, will now take the salute as once again the Foot Guards march past their sovereign. Miss Sarah Ferguson there, Prince Andrew. And the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, who fired the Royal Salute from Hyde Park at 11 o'clock to mark the Queen's official birthday. Ride past. They take precedence over all other regiments of the army when they are with their guns. Angus Ogleby there, as the Blues and Royals rank past. The Foot Guards going to Wellington Barracks, the Household Cavalry to Hyde Park. And what a huge turnout of the royal family. The whole balcony is filled. The lifeguards. So the 4 divisions of the Sovereign's escort are now ranked past Her Majesty. And the massed mounted bands, in their state clothing, move off to Constitution Hill. And what a day for the crowds to watch this splendid scene as the field officer and brigade waiting, Colonel Johnny Clevering, takes his leave of Her Majesty. Her Majesty turns about on Burmese and, accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh, will ride back into the inner quadrangle between the old and new guards. And so it is almost the end of Her Majesty's official birthday celebrations. But not quite. As the royal family leave the balcony, so the crowds who have been waiting patiently in the Mall and those who've come along from Horse Guards move forward in a very orderly fashion to the roadway outside Buckingham Palace, waiting to see the royal family come out on the balcony again, and with them this time Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, having dismounted in the inner quadrangle. Now you know why official birthdays are held, for the beautiful midsummer weather. The business of the guards goes on within the quadrangle. And there's little Prince William. Zara Phillips, Peter Phillips, Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, Duchess of Kent. Princess Alexandra, the Duke of Kent. Sarah Ferguson looking quite at home up there on the balcony. Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, the Grand Duke and Duchess of Luxembourg, and the crowd waiting, as are the royal family on the balcony, for the RAF's turn to wish the Queen a happy official birthday. As 9 Tornado F-2 fighters from RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire overfly Horse Guards, the Mall and Buckingham Palace on the stroke of 1 o'clock. Flying in Diamond 9 formation at 1,000 feet. Led by Wing Commander Rick Peacock Edwards, the first pilot to convert to these, the RAF's latest air defense aircraft, capable of flying in excess of twice the speed of sound. And already they're over the Thames at Putney. And it's always a bit like that after a flypast. One's left waiting for what happens next. Well, what happens next is a wave to the crowds in the summer's sunshine below. For them, and for a royal family of 4 generations on the balcony, it's been a happy official birthday. May there be many happy returns.